No timeouts remaining.
He causes too many timeouts. It's a technical foul.
Welcome to Spectacular Magazine's No More Timeouts Podcast, hosted by James Moore and Johhny Rodgers III. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the No More Timeouts Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Johhny Rodgers, and my co-host, James Moore. Say hello, James.
What's going on, people?
And today we're going to be talking about what's been happening in college basketball in the lead up to the ACC tournament. And for our first segment, we're going to have a little What Have You Done For Me Lately? Where we like to talk about who's been popping, who's not been popping, and who's been in between. And then we normalize it because everybody's human. So James, how's UNC been doing recently?
They've been pretty steady. They've been on a better path since the beginning of the season. They're currently on a 2-game win streak. Last week they beat Northeastern and Louisville. The week before that they lost to Virginia by 12. Those are the last 3 games, but over the last 2 games in their 2-0 win streak, they have won by 20 or more. I think, and dating back to June 2nd, they've been on they've won 9 of the last 12. So I think they're fine. They found their stride. They're on the way. I'm not really too confident in them in the NCAA tournament. And being that is because they're just young. They still have their youth. Although they are, they're second semester freshmen, a lot of them technically. So they're still trying to
find their footing.
They're still trying to get their feet wet. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I got you. Yeah.
I think it's just a growing process for them. I think next year would be their time, though. I think they could honestly be a top 10 team if everyone stays. With the exception of Garrison Brooks and Andrew Playtech. But I do think they'll be fine next year.
Yeah,
sure.
I think next year is definitely the year for UNC. They kind of had a rough start, and then when you have a rough start in NCAA ball, it's kind of hard to bounce back. But they're doing the bouncing part, and rebounds. My God, when you're in the tournament, rebounds become a hot commodity. And UNC, I can't lie, they're real good at rebounds. And they say it for a reason. Rebounds equal rings. They could make some noise in the ACC. I think the NCAA definitely a stretch. They're not fully developed and built to make a run yet, but I think they could definitely qualify and get in there and make some noise.
Absolutely.
And that Northeastern game, remind me, that was a last minute rescheduling, right?
Right.
Okay, that's what I thought.
They were originally supposed to play Virginia Tech, but it was postponed due to COVID issues.
Yeah. Yeah. I think UNC also has 3 of the top 10 rebounders in the ACC. 4.
Yeah.
I think it's Baycott, Sharp, and Brooks, right?
Yep.
Yeah, dude.
Those are the 3, and Day'Ron Sharp is a special talent, man. He is special. Out of Greenville, North Carolina, part of the 2-5.
Shout out.
Hometown. It's just he's everywhere. He's energetic. He brings that energy they need off the bench. He's the leading rebounder with 8 rebounds a game. He's amazing to have. He's amazing to have, and I definitely think he's a special talent. Maybe he could, depending on how the ACC tournament goes and the rest of the season, he could possibly end up going to the league. Yeah, I can see that, but I don't think he's at perfect for the league yet, but I definitely think he's on his way. And if he decides to stay, his draft stock is going to go up, and I can see him as a lottery pick next year.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely got the energy, and he's definitely got the archetype, the size and the play style. Mm-hmm. It's just, molding those things, developing in college. Sometimes some guys aren't one-and-dones, but that's okay. I think one-and-dones have become, the standard and not the exception, and so people think if you're not a one and done, you're inherently worse than players that did one and done. But when you look at the draft, most one and done players, the things they say about them are, oh yeah, he has a lot of potential. Oh yeah, he's still got a lot of developing to do. Oh yeah, these things are good, but he still and it's that you could say that about every college player. And some of them, when they get to draftable status, it's well, yeah, I wasn't draftable before. I was just as draftable then as I was now, technically, but I had more potential then as opposed to, actualized talent. And so it kind of gets lost in the sauce when players don't go early or don't go out their first year. It becomes this, will they ever get drafted type thing where I don't think that's fair. because I feel like you should have at least 1, 2, maybe even 3 years like they do in football to prepare yourself for the pro game. Like, it's a completely different game than the game you've been playing.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, that's honestly why the NBA is so young, because a lot of players are leaving their first and second years. I mean, majority of them their first year, So I definitely think that's where the youth in the NBA comes from, and I just think UNC has a they're right there at the cusp of success. So I think they're on their way.
Yeah, Roy Williams has definitely been good for keeping those players in college and developing them, as opposed to just, I brought in some 5 stars and they're gone. Right. I'm not saying there's a problem with it, but I mean, we see what happens with Duke. Some years they're real good, and some years they're not as good as all the 5 stars on their roster would indicate, and it's because those players are young. They're freshmen. They're still developing, and yet we're expecting them to play like pros, because soon they're going to be pros. But that doesn't mean they're ready.
Right. It doesn't mean they're ready. The college game is way different from the league. Totally different. It's like a culture shock almost.
Exactly. A lot of players you see go in there and look like a fish out of water. Like they've never played basketball in their life. And it's like, I mean, that's one of the best basketball players in America. You're just seeing them get exposed to the other best basketball players in America.
Absolutely. And I honestly feel like being a 5-star rating at this point, in this day and age, being a 5-star rating is kind of overrated. It doesn't really necessarily mean anything all the time.
Absolutely not. Because more of it is for the school you go to than even your skill. You can average 30 points at Montverde and you're already a 4-star. Or 5-star rather. But like you average 30 points anywhere else, you might be like a 3-star. And so I know their level of competition is technically higher, but it's like 2 stars higher. Like, I don't know. I was the same player when I was. It's like the TJ Warren conundrum. Like, he was in Durham, 2-star. Man goes to Brewster, 5-star or 4-star, whatever it was. And it's like, I mean, that man averaged the same 22, 25 points a game. Like, I don't.
Exactly.
And so it just. Yeah, like it's really, that star rating system is definitely archaic and outdated, and I don't think it reflects the skill level of a lot of players that come up, because you see a lot of 2-star and like 3-star players, quote unquote, in the league, MVP caliber, all-star caliber, and it's like, okay, so obviously the star system only picks out the good players and doesn't really do much for anyone that's not literally, I can look at you and tell you're a 5-star. So not the greatest rating system ever, but I digress.
Not at all. So let's talk about Duke a little bit. What have you been seeing from Duke?
Speaking of 5 stars, Duke actually lost a 5-star recently. Okay, wait, that was the worst segue. I can't act like that was natural. Okay, but no. Duke did lose a 5-star recently. And Jalen Johnson opted out, but he had been battling a foot injury all season, so the opt-out didn't really strike me as that much of a shock. He wasn't really playing starting minutes. Whenever he would play, he would show flashes of being good, but then he would show an equal number of flashes of being the underdeveloped, underplayed 5-star that we could not see because he was injured. And so it just made it seem like he was kind of having a disjointed experience at Duke. And I think Coach K saw it too and said you'd be better off just not trying to get this half-assed season and just go and prepare yourself for the draft and just be fully healthy entering that. Right. Because that's going to be your career. You're not going no degree at Duke. No, I'm going to just tell you straight up, Jalen.
Exactly.
And so go ahead, go to the league, get what you need, get your chips up, and then, hopefully you succeed. But it was just, I feel like he saw that Jalen might be hurting himself by staying and trying to play. And so it was better to just let him feel that he didn't need to stay for any sort of reason, and that it was okay if he wanted to go. Because Coach K would have said as much if he had thoughts about Jalen's departure, but he said he talked to him and he was happy for him. He wants those things for the kids, because as much as people give Coach K grief for using his players and bringing in 5-stars and then dismissing them, they're not useful and stuff like that, he cares about his players and he cares about that program.
Yeah,
and so anyone that comes through that door and is under the umbrella of Coach K, he's going to take care of them. Whether it's putting them on the floor or whether it's telling them that, hey, you need to step off the floor. And maybe it's just time for you to go to the NBA floor. But those are things that young guys need the people above them to be giving them guidance on, not just, I don't know, just being indifferent about it. He had an active role in that. Jalen Johnson did not just leave Duke autonomously. He didn't just say, I'm leaving Duke today and then tell everyone at Duke. He definitely spoke about it in length with several members of the staff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This has been going on for a while.
Exactly.
It's definitely been going on for a while.
A developing story, as we say. But Duke without Jalen Johnson has actually gotten better, which is the crazy thing.
It's appalling to say the least.
Yeah, but like I said, it was Jalen Johnson was a 5-star, and if you're a 5-star, you're getting like starting reps and like starting minutes, even if you're playing like a scrub. And so, I can tell you what them Duke practices were looking like with Jalen Johnson and without Jalen Johnson. Every forward was getting a lot less shots when Jalen Johnson was in the gym, just off the strength alone of it's a 5-star. He's better than me, so why should I get more shots than him? Like, you see what I'm saying? It's like you said, the intimidation factor. Like, he may not have even been the best freshman they had, but he was the biggest name.
Exactly.
And so, therefore, he's going to draw the most gravity, and everyone's going to be looking at him at all times. And if you're a freshman next to that, it's kind of hard to, well, hey, coach, I'm averaging 14 a game. If you're DJ Stewart, like, hey, coach, I'm averaging like 12, 14 a game. Like, what's up? Like, ACC freshman of the year. And then it's like Jalen Johnson. Like, even in the press conferences, they would ask DJ Stewart, hey, how do you feel about Jalen Johnson's first game back? He's starting to catch his rhythm, right? And it's like, you could tell the players liked each other. Like, they're freshmen, they're cool with each other. But just that theme of whoever the biggest name on the team is, it was the same thing with Zion. RJ, they were asking questions. Cam, they might ask him a question every once in a while. But that was 2 other top 5 players in the class. And they're just eclipsed wholly by one player. And that one player may not have even been better at that time. Obviously, Zion was the best player on that team. I'm not going to cap like that. But I'm saying with the Jalen Johnson issue. And so it just, it seems like they started to kind of not play better, but it seems like the pressure was alleviated of that cloud of like, what is Jalen Johnson going to do? What is Jalen Johnson not going to do? Is Jalen Johnson going to save us? It was like, Jalen Johnson's going. Jalen Johnson's not coming through that door, I can't even think of the coach that said that, but it was a Louisville coach that got fired for doing the Adidas thing. But as they say, like, he's not coming through. Pitino, right, Rick Pitino. I couldn't think of his name. Yeah. But yeah, as Pitino said, like, Jalen Johnson's not coming through that door, so we all in here got to go either win or lose. But it's going to be with us. And I think that pressure of is Jalen here, is Jalen not here, kind of going away entirely just allowed them to kind of not relax, but settle into, all right, everyone has their role. We all know what we are here to do. We all know everybody has to do. We all know what we have and what we don't have. And then they gelled and they just went out and did what they had to do. And the lineup change also was a big part of that. When Jalen went out, he wasn't starting, but Mark Williams was getting like very little minutes because Jalen was getting a lot of minutes off the bench. But now Mark Williams is in that lineup, and they got Matthew Hurt at the 4. They got Williams at the 5. And so Williams is really good at guarding the rim. Even though he had limited minutes and he didn't really play that much, he is 8th in the ACC in blocks.
Big time rim protector. Exactly. And now Hurt doesn't have to stand under the rim and flop like a fish and get like 5 fouls. Because he was fouling out almost every other game before they put Williams at center. But now, that man has not fouled out since. Because I'm going to say this. He's not built to be down low. He is a stretch 4.
Yes.
He is a stretch 4. He is not built to be down low.
Exactly.
He's getting bullied, so you got to foul. You can't stop the bigger man. So you really have no choice in that aspect.
Exactly. So his foul numbers have gone down. And his efficiency actually went up. Like, he's been hitting more shots. Obviously, the whole streak when he was 18 to 21 from 3. I'm not even going to speak on that because that just speaks for itself. My God. But, like, I think DJ Stewart surmised it best in a press conference. He said, I don't know. That man just don't miss. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, when you're a basketball player and there's other basketball players telling you don't miss, like, you're a good basketball player.
Shoot or shoot, baby.
Shoot or shoot. Exactly. And he been hitting, so but it's a hot streak. At the end of the day, he gonna cool off. He started cooling off against. Jeez, sorry, I had to scratch my head. My bad.
It's all good.
Nah, he started cooling off in their last game. I can't even remember who they played. I'm bad.
The last game they played Syracuse.
It was Syracuse, right? Yeah, I knew it was an orange team, bro, but I kept thinking Clemson. But, like, I was like, it's not Clemson. They played Clemson so long ago. Like, I know it's not Clemson, but that's the only orange I could think of. I was like, bro, it's not Clemson. I'm not about to say Clemson. Like,
I'll be having the brain frost.
Yeah, facts. See, that's the part you conveniently just cut out.
Right.
And so, but yeah. Back to what I was saying. Yeah, like, he started cooling off against Syracuse. Like, he was shooting well, but he was 5 for 11. So we can't act like he's still on that hot streak. Like, it was, you came back to earth. All right, welcome back. But I can't act like that 18 for 21 wasn't incredible.
Right. That was amazing.
And so I think he should be ACC Player of the Year. Hurt, that is. But I can see a case for Champagny, and I can also see a case for Carlik Jones from Louisville. They both been hooping. I think Alvarado has like a really like dark horse chance.
Yeah.
And Hauser also has a chance just because Virginia's doing so well. But I think those are really the only people that have a chance. Like I don't think UNC really has anybody. I don't think State really has anybody that has a chance. Just
I tell you what about UNC, if Caleb Love would have been playing at the same intensity that he's playing now throughout the whole season, he could be a runner for ACC Player of the Year.
Absolutely.
He's been balling.
Absolutely. He's been hooping. Yeah, he definitely had one of those rough starts I talked about, and he's bounced back very well. He's been looking like a stud. Next year, Caleb Love is going to be scary. If he comes back.
Yeah. Right.
He might have some draft stock by the end of the season. He keep playing like that.
Yeah. He very well could. Late first round.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Them late first rounders are... I don't ever want to pencil those people in because it's like by that point, the teams that are still on the board are going to pick the player that best fits what they need. Like it's not going to be the best available most of the time. And so if you are a good guard that plays defense and has a lot of hustle, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, like come on down. Like, and you're 19. Like,
get in there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, defense in the NBA is definitely a highly sought after commodity because most players just do not play it well. So you know, if you give that energy, you will have a spot on the roster. You may not get a lot of minutes. You may be an energy guy that goes in for 10 minutes a game, but it's going to be 3 2-minute shifts where I expect you to play the hardest defense of your life.
Exactly.
And so it's, you know.
And defense is merely a mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like if you want to get out there and play defense, yeah. If you want to get out there and play defense, you will. Like if you truly want to.
It's all the good defensive players you see in the league. None of them have like no particular, like obviously Kawhi, you know, he's got the hands from hell, but no one has particularly like any super crazy like athleticism that other players don't have. Like the best offensive players that be jumping out the gym and running the fastest, you rarely see them as the best defensive stoppers. Usually the defensive stopper is a guy that's like a normal guy like you and me. Well, not you and me, but you know, a normal by NBA standards of athleticism. And they just give it their all 100% of the time, and you never see them lapse mentally. And the mental lapse is the biggest threat on defense, in my opinion, more so than anything physical that can happen. Because a guy can cross you over, do all these dance moves, and if you're agile enough to stay with him, you'll stay with him. But if you lapse mentally when you're off the ball and your guy cuts off a screen real hard and now he has a wide open jumper, that's your fault. And it's literally only because you lapsed mentally. You could have stayed with him. You could have covered him the whole time, but it's just that mental focus is hard to maintain for a full 40 minutes and 60 minutes in the NBA. Or 48, rather. I was thinking of basketball or football for a second.
That's facts, though. It's nothing but facts.
All right, I think that's good for the "What have you done for me lately" segment. I think we covered Duke UNC pretty well. We could talk about State if you want, though. I was gonna say we didn't talk about State.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
All right, we'll chat about them a bit. So NC State has actually been doing kind of an up and down thing recently, where they play really good and then they play really bad. And then they play really good again, and then they play really bad. Like, but it's not in the sense that they are losing games off of it. Like, they're still winning a decent amount of games. Like, they could make the tournament if they went out. And by tournament, I mean the NIT. But, you know, it's possible. Like, postseason success. And in a COVID year when games are canceled and everything is in and out and players are missing time, if you make any sort of postseason tournament, you succeeded that season, I'd say.
Absolutely.
Because you can't expect like any, you know, at the beginning of the season, every team says we want to win a championship, but that's if we do everything right and everything goes according to plan. And this season was already not going according to plan, just off rip. So that was out the window. And so it's just, you know, play as good as you can. Whenever you play as hard. Like, and I think NC State has done that. I think NC State goes out and plays hard every game. They play their scheme every game, and sometimes they just lose. But when you don't have that like star player to carry you anymore. Devin Daniels went out with the ACL. It's just, you know, they're playing it out. It's their season where they could have made the NCAA tournament and made some noise went out the window when Devin Daniels went out the window.
Absolutely. That was a big misfortune for them. That was a big misfortune. That was huge. Because he was going to carry them into the – honestly, they may have had a chance in the ACC tournament. I could have saw them playing in the semifinals of the ACC tournament.
Yeah, I could see them make a run if they had Daniels.
All cylinders, yeah, if they had Daniels. But yeah, in NIT they may make a run depending on who's in there with them.
Yeah,
but they just have to fire on all cylinders for that to happen.
Yeah, there's gonna be some mean NIT rejects this year though. Like I feel like there's gonna be some teams in the NIT that definitely should not be in the NIT just because of the way the season went.
Absolutely, it's gonna look like the NCAA.
Yeah, exactly. The shadow NCAA tournament. Because some years the NIT do be looking like that though. Like some years like teams be getting snubbed from NCAA and the NIT be kind of stacked. And I'm like, wait, like why are y'all here?
Absolutely.
And so I think it's gonna be one of those years for State. But when Daniels went out, it definitely derailed their whole season and championship aspiration, or I guess ACC championship aspiration, I should say, before NCAA tournament. But now they're just fighting for any postseason berth at this point, and I think they can manage it, but it'll be a short-lived berth because once again they don't have their star, and it's very hard to play without your star.
Right, very, very tough. Very tough.
And with that, I think we'll wrap up the "What have you done for me lately?" And so for our next segment, me and James are going to talk about some notable players from our teams of note and discuss why they've been a big impact for their team so far and what we think their impact will have to do with that team's chances at success in the postseason. We're going to call this segment Shoot or Shoot. And for our first shooter, I think we should talk about the biggest shooter in the league so far, Matthew Hurt. I'll lead in with Matthew Hurt is number 2 in the ACC in points per game with 18.5, which is crazy. And he is also in the top 10 in the nation in three-point percentage, number 5, at, I believe it is 44% as of the Syracuse game, because it changed after the Syracuse game, because he shot a little lower, not lower than normal, but he came back to earth. He was on an 18 for 21 three-point streak before that. So it was, his average was bolstered up a lot over the past 3 games, but then that 4th game kind of knocked it back to, regress to the mean, as we'll say. And he's 10th in the nation in offensive rating. He's a scorer. His defense, we're not going to talk about that. But for ACC Player of the Year, they usually only consider offense. Let's be real. MVP awards are Offensive Player of the Year awards. We can say it. It won't be controversial. The best defensive player is never going to win ACC Player of the Year. There's never going to be a Draymond of the ACC that wins ACC Player of the Year. And that's just how it goes. Case in point, Goldwire is the, quote, 3rd best guard on the team, and yet 2nd in the ACC in steals, a.k.a. the best defensive guard they have. And a key reason why they've been winning games. A lot of the games they won, including the Syracuse game, there was at least 1 or 2 plays where Goldwire generated a bucket off of a steal. In that he either stole it and ran down, generated a foul, scored the free throws, stole it, passed it up the court, generated an assist, or stole it, passed it up the court, generated a hockey assist. I've seen all 3 of those within the last 4 games. And yet Goldwire is never talked about when we talk about key players for Duke. And it's because on offense, I mean, he's mediocre at best, but he is a defensive clamper and a stopper. And I think his role on the team is a little undervalued, but only because it's defense that is his key attribute. And with that being said, that is why I think Matthew Hurt is going to win ACC Player of the Year, because he is the ultimate one-dimensional, all I do is play offense player. And if any of the ACC Player of the Year candidates have good defense, then they will immediately give Matthew Hurt a run for his money. But if Matthew Hurt can somehow get far and away the best offensive performance of the season, which he currently doesn't even have because he's not leading in points per game. He's behind Champagny by, I believe, less than half a point per game, but still behind him statistically. And so it's Champagny plays defense. Champagny gets a lot of rebounds. Hurt,
absolutely.
Every stat line I see of Hurt, it's a lot of points, less than 10 rebounds, and less than 5 assists, usually less than 3. And so that's not to knock Hurt as a player. He plays within his role. He knows he's good at scoring and not much else for that team. And so he doesn't try and do those other things and turn the ball over a lot. He usually only has like 1 or 2 turnovers. He doesn't try and force passes. He knows. And he does generate assists when they're there. If he's getting doubled in the post or he's getting doubled on the elbow, he knows to swing it out to the open guy. He has IQ. He's just not an all-around player. He's a scorer. And I think he's the best scorer in the ACC, just in pure scoring numbers, due to the nature of his jumper and the fact that he can kind of get inside too. Being a big man. If you're a big man with a 3-ball, you're moving up in the rankings for me. And if you can handle off the dribble, you move up the ranking even more. And Hurt doesn't have the greatest dribble package, but he can handle the ball. And he definitely can shoot reliably. And for that, I think that is putting him in the, not the pedestal of best player in the ACC definitively, but he's definitely on the podium of those top 3, and he will be a finalist. And I think he'll win. But if he doesn't win, I won't be surprised due to the one-dimensional nature of his game.
Right. I can agree with that. I would like to say Champagny for ACC Player of the Year, but, you know, I mean, he is out for 2 months, and, I mean, that's really the rest of the season. So he Matthew Hurt has a higher shooting percentage. He's 55%. Champagne's is 50%. Hurt is more efficient. Like you said, he's 10th in the nation in offensive rating. So I definitely think I'm leaning more towards him winning ACC Player of the Year. As much as I hate to say it, but I definitely believe he's extremely efficient enough. And like you said, he moves up the rankings just because he's a big man that can shoot. And he doesn't have he doesn't have a big dribble package, but he can handle the ball very well. He kind of reminds me of a Porzingis kind of. I mean, he's not as big as a rebounder as Porzingis, but he can shoot the ball and he can give you a bucket at any given moment. So I definitely think that'll help him out a lot. And like you said, he is one dimensional. Champagne is kind of all around and all over the place. So I definitely like that argument.
It's one of those cases where it'll be good. It's one of those cases where it'll be. Does the player that scores the most become the best player, like quote unquote? Because technically in basketball, you score the most points, you're the best team. But
absolutely,
is it the player that is the best player, the ACC Player of the Year? You know what I mean? Like, because a lot of those awards, it comes down to that: are scoring versus overall play. And I think that is going to be the Hurt versus Champagne dichotomy in a nutshell. So we'll see it unfold. But my money's on Hurt, just having seen the award given in previous years. I always like to call back to the TJ Warren year where he averaged the most points in the league and literally did nothing else and won ACC Player of the Year. And it's just like, and then went to the NBA and did the same thing. I'm good for 20 a game. What about rebounds? Nothing. Yeah, I get buckets. That's it. Rebounds are optional. Defense is optional. Buckets are required.
As soon as the ball hit the rim, as soon as the ball go in the air, cherry picking.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hey yo, hit me. I'm open. Coach, we playing 5-on-4 scheme today? Like, right. I guess we are. Like, and so it's one of those things where I think that's what it's going to come down to. But I mean, there might be some other factors that come into play. Who do you think for UNC has been like the key for y'all, like the main guy, like, or a couple guys, I guess you could say, because Duke has more than one. But I just wanted to do Hurt first because he's their number one guy, I guess.
Yeah, I could say back to what I was saying earlier about Day'Ron Sharpe. He's averaging a smooth 10 points a game with 8 boards a game, and he is pretty efficient, shooting 53% a game. So I definitely feel like he's kind of the dark horse, if you will. He's kind of the gritty player, the glue guy. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? He's like the ball of energy coming off the bench. So I definitely think that helps ignite the team and help them to go on a little run late in the season. And I would also say Caleb Love, he's come alive over honestly, I guess you could say in the 2021 half of the season. Since January, he's definitely come alive and he's here. I definitely think he's arrived. I think his confidence is to a whole different level. As I like to say, he's in his bag. He's definitely deep in his bag. I think if he cut down on turnovers, I think he's averaging 3 turnovers a game. So I definitely think if he continues to cut that down, he cut it down to 1.5, around 2. Yeah, he can definitely excel and
because he's the big ball handler for y'all, right? Like he be playing point, he be bringing it up. So it's when you're the point guard and you're a freshman, you're gonna be throwing a lot of turnovers just off, right?
Absolutely.
And so growing out of that, I think will be a big step for him.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of what Roy Williams is trying to make him grow out of. Just be more mindful on the offensive end and stop being so careless with the ball. And and he also needs to shoot at a better percentage. He's only shooting 32% a game. So, that's horrid. That's not acceptable. You know what I'm saying? That's not a starting point guard's. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely think he's like I said, he's here, he's arrived, but he has some changes to make and he has some making up to do. But As I definitely think those two, and honestly, I can give it to all the post players.
Yeah, I was going to say, them 3 post players, that's the three-headed monster.
Most consistent all season. You know what I'm saying? And, if one isn't playing right, if Garrison Brooks isn't having a good game, Armando Bacot is. When Garrison Brooks started off the season on a slump, Armando Bacot was, you know what I'm saying? He's the highest. He's averaging 11, almost 12 points a game, and he's the highest scorer on the team. So I definitely think he picked up a lot of the slack. And if Armando Bacot isn't balling out, then there you have Day'Ron Sharpe. So I think it's a win-win. And I definitely, and Walker Kessler definitely comes in off the bench and gives a little length at being at 7'1". Make a couple rebounds, and he's a big man that likes to get on the floor and go out to loose balls. So I think all these young guys are coming into their own, and I guess I can give it to all the young guys. Just finding their footing.
Yeah, I think the young guys have been playing good as a unit, like you said. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of synergy. It's not really. You can't really ask. Like, I guess I asked you, not really a flawed question, but I guess it's like a hard question to ask for UNC because it's like. There is no one guy that you point to and you're like, yeah, that's our guy. And without that guy, we're not the same team. It's like they're interchangeable. It's, Sharpe could come out, Bacot could go in. Bacot could come out, Brooks could go in.
Absolutely.
Like Leaky Black and Caleb Love, like they coexist. Like it's not like they're the same player. I'm not going to say they're the same player, but, they play off each other. They can do things that the other can't. And that synergy is important to the team. I think that is the most important thing for them. So I agree with you on that you really could just give it to the 3 guys on the low block. And then the 2 guys up top are just playing off of that low block. And they've gotten success off it.
Agreed.
I'd say my next person for Duke would have to be DJ Stewart. Just because I feel that I don't think he gets enough recognition for being just consistent. He scored basically over 10 points in every game he's played. And that may not seem, crazy, but in college, if you're averaging 10 a game, you're a solid starter. Like I need because people don't realize when they look at the pro scores and see 100 points, 130 points, 150 points. Like in college, 80 points is a high scoring game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I got an 8 to 10 man rotation. So if you're giving me 10, you're giving me 10% of my points, and so I can't afford to lose that. Like I need that consistently. Like you can't just go out there and sell and it'll be all right. Kumbaya, the star is going to carry us and save the day. Like everybody's got to do their role, even if their role is something small. And DJ Stewart's role is not small, but it is not discussed as much as it should be because that man is averaging 12.5 points a game in a season when Duke has not played consistently at all. He has been one piece of consistency. Hurt has been another piece of consistency, I would say, because no matter up or down, he's always given about 20, 25. Everybody else has been kind of hit or miss for Duke, and it's been hectic. But with DJ Stewart just continually, showing that I'm a freshman, I can continually get better, I can keep playing consistently, and I can hit my stride, I think it kind of not woke up the other freshmen. I don't think they were asleep, but I think it just showed that there is an end of the tunnel. Like, just because it's hard at the beginning and you're struggling, you can get out of that and be doing good. Like, we see Mark Williams come out and getting all these blocks and playing hard interior defense and going out there and looking like he's been playing like this all season. But it would be very easy for a freshman to go out there and get overwhelmed.
Right.
And yet that has not happened with Duke. And I think it's a testament to Coach K's, leadership and just coaching ability to be able to draw out the most from these young guys. Because he goes in every press conference and says, yeah, I'd like to do this, but we're young. We're a young team. We're working on it. We're young. I know we can do it. We're young. And when I was hearing it at first, it seemed just like a excuse. But I think it was more so of a reality, like him assessing reality. He was saying, we can do this. We are going to get to this spot where it's just they're young guys and they're learning, but I can get them there. Is kind of what I take from it now. Like, he knew the whole time they would get to this 4-game win streak. Maybe not 4 in a row, per se. But he knew they had this potential to beat Virginia, to win games against opponents that are in the conference. And another thing that was of note was Duke has not lost no games by more than 7 points in the conference. There are 2 games they lost by double digits were out of conference. One was against Illinois, and the other one was against another Big Ten team that is slipping my mind right now. But regardless, in conference, they've played a lot of close games. Wait, what did you say, James?
That's big time. It says a lot.
That says a lot. That's what I'm saying. When you're losing every game by 7 points or less, and the 7-point loss was Virginia Tech, every other game was 5 points or less. or maybe one was 6, I believe. But still, you get the gist. If you're losing games by less than 10 points every single time, there's something you're doing right consistently. You may have done a lot of mistakes to lose the game, but you were also playing good enough defense or scoring at the right times or whatever to keep you in that game. And I think Stewart and I think Goldwire, to a degree, mainly on defense, are the reason like the team has just been generally consistent. Obviously, Hurt is always going to be Hurt, a star. But the role players got to be role players consistently because your role players can fluctuate a lot in college, and that can be the difference more so than your stars being consistent. I think it's like the opposite of the NBA, in which role player fluctuation is the main thing that can win or lose you a game. In college, I said it backwards, but in the NBA, star player fluctuation is the main thing that can lose you the game or win it. And in college, it's role player fluctuation. I got to the end of that sentence and I was like, wait, I said this backwards. Because I was like,
had to think about it myself.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I was like, wait, that's backwards. No, it's all good though. But they knew what I meant. And so it's this thing where if your role players play consistently well in college, that's great. You got a championship caliber team, but getting your role players to play consistently when they're young players that haven't played that much together is very hard to ask of any coach. And Coach K does it every single year. And that is not to be slept on.
At all.
And he's done it again this year. Stewart looking like a stud. Williams looking like a stud. You had Jeremy Roach the other day looking like a stud. Like, it's just...
Yeah, because, DJ Stewart doesn't necessarily look like a freshman when he's playing. He looks he looks comfortable sometimes, and I like what he's doing for Duke. I definitely do.
I like what he's doing too. I hope he doesn't leave, but I have a strong feeling he's going to be going in the draft because his shot is just too pure. Like,
yeah,
NBA teams are going to be lauding for that. Oh, you got the 3 ball. Yeah, come through.
He could be a good second round pick.
Yeah, he could be a good second round pick for a team, a project player.
Absolutely. Because I definitely think for guys like him and Caleb Love and kind of even Day'Ron Sharp, they can get drafted by a good team, come off the bench, get some experience, learn from their vets, and just just really grow in the league and become solid players instead of getting thrown to the wolves as a lottery pick. And
that lottery lifestyle not for everybody.
It ain't for everybody at all. It's not for everybody.
It will expose you fast if you're not ready. Yeah. Like, I've seen a lot of lottery picks.
For example.
Yeah. I always say Anthony Bennett.
Absolutely.
One good year, UNLV. My lord. I don't know what
who I like to say?
Who?
And I'm going to sound like Stephen A. Smith saying this with Kwame Brown.
I thought you were going to say Darko. Darko Milicic.
Him too.
Like, and this, it's easy to look back on those guys and laugh. Like, I mean, I get it. But at the same time, like, at the end of the day, that GM thought they were making the right pick when they did that.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing about drafting is, like, a guy can look great. He can look like he'll translate well and then get in there and just not, like, look like a fish out of water. It's...
Absolutely.
But I don't think it's any fault to the players necessarily. I think it's just the GMs see what they want to see a lot of times and the scouts see what they want to see and they don't see reality. And they kind of trick themselves. Because you can be, how they say some people are too good at their job. Like, they try and think of a solution for a problem that is way simpler, but they're thinking of it from, like, I know all this about, like, you see what I'm saying? Versus like a eyeball test, I can look at certain players that get drafted high, and I'm like, I'll look up their highlights, and I'll be like, yo, like, this guy, are you sure?
Right.
And it's like,
you positive?
You positive? Like, but then sometimes I'm proven wrong. Like with Porzingis, I can admit I was wrong. Like, I was like, all right, lanky European big man, like Dirk 2.0, quote unquote. Like they're gonna expect him to do a lot of things that Dirk could, and I don't know if he can. But then he came out there, and he shut me up, and I can take the L. But then go for it.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, the opposite side of it is I was completely right on Malik Monk. When the Hornets drafted him, I was completely against Malik Monk. Because Malik Monk, every time I have to say this, I really just want to like jump off a bridge for the GM who did this. Because Malik Monk, if I'm not mistaken, came out the same year in the draft as Donovan Mitchell. And he was like 2 picks before that man.
Yep.
And so it's like, and I'm pretty sure Bam came out that year too. Yeah,
he did.
And so it's like
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, like I don't want to like bash nobody, but like, come on, guys, like y'all missed. Like y'all can't act like y'all didn't. Yeah, y'all missed on two studs. Like y'all missed big time.
Big time.
And it's because
and Bam.
Oh no, I was gonna say it's because when Monk was at Kentucky, everybody was talking about Bam and all the other. And it wasn't like he was, and so they were like, oh yeah, Monk is playing with Bam Adebayo. Obviously, he's just as good. Like you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like you automatically put the player you want on the same level as whoever was on their team.
Absolutely.
But you like that might not be true. And as we saw with Malik Monk, that was not nearly the truth.
Exactly.
And so when you're a big man in college, you don't average as many points as the guards, just inherently most times.
Right.
Unless you're literally the focal point of the offense. And so Bam's numbers looked quote unquote like lower. But at the same time, it's like, Monk, you were jacking up shots and you still jack up shots in the league inefficiently.
Like
just as bad. Just as bad. Exactly. Yeah. Like you've not done nothing to change the way you play, and it shows. And so when people go to the draft after like 1 year or even after 2 years, it's kind of a lot of soul searching has to be done by the GM on if I take this guy and it doesn't work out, what's like the worst case scenario? And I don't think GMs do that. I think they see all the potential and what is the most I could get out of this player, and they just take him. And they don't think, all right, so if they bottom out entirely and are below my expectations, what would that look like? And then players play like that, and it's like, oh, well, we didn't expect it. And so I think the GMs fall in love with a little bit too much love with the potential, and it can kind of bite them. And I hope Caleb Love and players of that nature, DJ Stewart, I couldn't think of the player I had originally mentioned, DJ Stewart and Caleb Love, I hope they don't fall victim to this. Like ambitious GMs trying to like see something out of them, but I don't think they have enough in their package to warrant GMs getting thirsty over them. I think they'll go to a team that actually can use them.
I agree. Cause they won't go anywhere and be the stars or they won't be a Zion.
No.
They won't average 20 points in their first 25 games. Like they're not going to be that player. They're not going to be that player.
Yeah. I think that might be better for them in the long run, though.
Right, absolutely. It'll humble them big time. Yeah.
And speaking of the draft, we kind of wanted to take a little aside out of college basketball and talk about the NBA for a moment. We do have a team in our state, the Charlotte Hornets, and they're actually not terrible this year, which is against the norm. But I think it is in no small part due to both the appearance of Gordon Hayward from the Celtics and LaMelo Ball, Lonzo Ball's brother, coming in and shocking everybody by actually being good at NBA basketball. So, James, what do you have to say about the Hornets?
Well, I think it's a good sign that they're half a game from the 8th seed. I think it's big for them, especially, since it's like halfway through the season so far, just before the trade deadline. I think LaMelo Ball has really shown that he's the best ball. First and foremost, he's the best out of the three. He's a passer. He gonna get you buckets. He's averaging 14 and a half a game, but he's been averaging 20 points a game since he's been in the starting lineup. So, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's just like it didn't take him long. And granted, he did play professional ball overseas, so he kind of had a head start, kind of like Luka Doncic of the Mavericks. So I think that helped a lot for him. That definitely helped a lot for him. Gordon Hayward, even though he's out right now with a hand injury, he's the team leading scorer at 22 points a game. I definitely believe him and getting him from that signing trade from the Celtics that made them benefit a lot. Big time. And Terry Rozier, Scary Terry, he's balling out. He's averaging 20 a game. Go ahead. Yeah. No, I was finished.
Oh, okay, yeah. Terry was the one when he came there. It was just people were so like. I don't know if people don't watch basketball and they just go by. Do they go on like Basketball Reference and look at their stat line and decide if they're good or not? But I was seeing a lot of like Terry Rozier slander. of like, oh, like
really?
Yes, like when he first came to the Hornets, like they were slandering him because he had never averaged over, I believe, like 36% from the field. Like he had never shot like 40% from the field, let alone from three.
Right.
And so it's like he was playing in a role where he was behind Kyrie, who's a star, and he was getting limited minutes. And then he came into a playoff run where Kyrie was out and he was the starter and averaged well over 17 points and shot better than 40%. But it was the playoffs, and so everybody was like doing the regular season. And he came back in the regular season and was behind Kyrie again and didn't like his role and played poorly. But if I got a level up and I'm the starter and I got to be the guy and I showed y'all I could be the guy, and then the actual guy comes back and you guys are like, you're not the guy anymore, like fall back. That's going to be grating, and players aren't going to, like go with that very well. And so his numbers didn't really show what like his play was. And when he came to the Hornets, everybody was so surprised when he started doing good. Like, oh my God, Terry Rozier is good. Like, wow. And it's duh. Exactly. If you had seen the man play, you'd be like, well, duh. Like, he just never got to start. He was a bench player. Like,
exactly.
And so a lot of the times the players will either go to a new team or leave their team or just come to a new team like as a rookie. And people will kind of judge them for how they play when they're getting limited minutes. Like, even LaMelo, people were like, but like, can he start and can continue it in his like starting role? And he became a starter and was doing better than he was doing his limited bench minutes. It's one of those things where the eyeball test is king to me. Stats tell their story, and the eyeball test can at times tell a completely different story. And I think together, that is the ultimate, obviously, unity. But I think the eyeball test is much more important than stats. Just from I can look at this player and tell if they're good or bad easier off the eyeball test than any stats. Because you can look at a lot of stats and think a guy's real good and then see him play and be like, man, this guy's got inflated numbers. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so it's like, yeah, like I think the Terry Rozier thing was definitely like one of those that opened my eyes to it a lot, because I'm like, all right, like I'm seeing a lot of Terry Rozier slander, and now I'm seeing a lot of Terry Rozier praise, but it's like he didn't change at all. Like, he is the same player that came to the Hornets,
exact same
that was
player.
on the Celtics. Like, he has not changed.
Yeah, like that's a problem. I didn't know that. That was Terry Rozier slander. Like, he's the real deal, man. He will get you a bucket, and he's tough nosed. He's hard nosed. So like he's
a grinder.
He's gonna get gritty on the floor. Yeah. So let me just talk about. I mean, like it's just caught my attention. He's averaging nearly 20 points a game, but that's 30th in the league. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
You tried so hard to save it after.
I tried so hard.
It's like when you curse in front of your grandma, bro. Like you know you said it, but you be like, like you try to take it back. Oh my God, you really tried.
I tried hard. But for real, that's ridiculous. Like,
man, scoring more points per game than Tobias, Pascal, Bam, Shea, Kevin Durant. Like, wow. Oh no, these are points total. These are not points per game. Okay, I was capping like shit.
Okay.
I was like, there ain't no way he got more points per game than KD. Oh, but this is total points. Okay, so this is availability. How do I do points per game? I don't know how to filter by points per game, but I see what you're saying. Like on the points per game list, he is 30th. I just looked at total points when I said it out loud, and then I saw he was above KD. But that's why I was filtered by points. I was like, wait, what? But KD's definitely averaging more points per game. But he has more total points than KD. But he is 30th on the points per game list, which is in and of itself impeccable. And goes to show, like, Terry Rozier is a good basketball player. He is a starting caliber player. But people were saying he wasn't because he was behind Kyrie, who is an all-star caliber player. It's like, when you're not as good as an all-star, you're bad.
I guess it's what people think.
That's what I'm saying.
Ridiculous to me. Like,
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Like, you not watching the same game or analyzing the same game that I'm watching, like, I don't get it.
I think a lot of people that talk about basketball do not watch basketball. Like, that's my theory. Like, I really truly believe a lot of people that discuss basketball do not watch basketball because they will say things about players, and then it's like they'll say things about another player that they do like well, right? And I'm like, well, the original player you mentioned does that better than the second player you mentioned, but okay. You see what I'm saying? Like, but it's like not some statistical. It'll be like something like off the ball, and I'm like, well, when I was watching that player off the ball, it seemed like they were doing that, but you know, your tape might have been different than mine. Maybe it was running at half speed or something. I don't know, but
and you know what? I honestly, I can give a little pushback on that. I think they watch it. I just don't think they understand it to the fullest extent.
Yeah.
That can't be possible.
I can agree with that, but I think we're saying the same thing.
Right.
Like, looking at the game, like, turning the game on the TV is not the same as, like, understanding it. Like you said, like, I can watch the game with my eyes, but not understand it with my brain, and I'm not watching it. So, yeah, like you said, they watch it, but it's like they don't understand fully basketball, and so they just kind of, you know, go with stats and go with what's popular, like, to say, like, oh, his true shooting percentage is bad, so he's bad. Like, there was an argument at one time that Otto Porter was better than DeMar DeRozan because he had a higher true shooting percentage.
That is ridiculous.
And that's ridiculous. Exactly. Like, when I say that out loud, it sounds ridiculous. But people were arguing this in good faith. Like it was a valid point. And I'm like, okay, but you know what I mean? It's like, I don't even know where to start with that. Like, there's so many buts I could throw in there. It's like, and so it's just one of those things where basketball is such a fast game, and it's so rhythmic and it flows. You know, it's like water. Like, you're not going to look at a river flowing and say, oh, yeah, I remember that droplet of water I saw, like, you know, you see what I'm saying? Like, you just saw the river flowing. Like, you're seeing the game flow, but you can look in the river and see, like, those little particles floating through the water. Like, you see what I'm saying? And, like, they don't be taking the time to look at the detail. Like, they just see the game as a whole, and they say, all right, let's see the box score. And that's the end-all, be-all. The box score is everything. If it's not in the box score, it didn't happen. It doesn't matter. So all those deflections you got, irrelevant. That pass you tipped that kept them from getting a wide open dunk, irrelevant. Like, that perfect assist you got that the guy missed, irrelevant because he missed the shot. Like, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Those are things you would not see in a box score. But if you're watching tape, you'll see, oh, yeah, he made a very good read right there. They just didn't convert. And those things get lost in the sauce when you're discussing, like, NBA teams generally, because the players themselves are held to such a high standard that when they're not at average, quote-unquote average for the NBA, it's like they're bad. But their play style may just not lend itself to being at average in certain statistical measures, but they still could be a net positive to the team. And I think that fact just gets kind of washed over a lot when we start talking about the star players and, like, who's doing what for a team. But overall, at the end of the day, it is a team game. So your numbers can be great. You could be the best player in the league, but your team could be bums. It's like the Trae Young conundrum. That man's 10th in the league in scoring, but his team is horrible, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It was like LeBron's problem before he literally dragged his team kicking and screaming into the finals. He's never going to be able to win in the playoffs. He's never going to be able to make it to the finals. He doesn't have and he makes it there and then they get swept. And it's like LeBron can't carry his team to success. Like, they always just move the goalposts, like, further back.
Yeah. Like he wasn't the only all-star that team.
Exactly.
Right.
But one player cannot make your team good. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
He was the only all-star and they went to the finals. And he was the goodest player in the league, but it's like that one player cannot do everything, even if he's literally doing everything.
Exactly.
And some people consider LeBron the greatest player ever, and he dragged his team to the finals and fell short. And so when you're just a regular star player, like, your team has to do a little bit of the lifting for you. You're not going to be able to just backpack them everywhere. And Trae Young has none of that, but he's still young. He got a lot of time.
Oh yeah, he has plenty of time.
I don't want them to waste him, you know. They seem like they're building around him,
though. I think getting rid of John Collins would help them.
Really?
It'll help. Yeah.
Why do you say that?
I mean, I say that because for one, they have Clint Capella. Now, John Collins is no scrub by any means. Let me just make that clear. He's no scrub, but Clint Capella kind of does what John Collins does, but a little bit better on a tad higher level. I don't know if it's because of experience. I don't know if it's because of knowing your role. I'm not sure if it's because John Collins sees himself as an outside threat as well. I'm not sure what it is. But I feel like Clint Capella, maybe just a better fit. Clint Capella is the better fit for Trae Young, and I definitely think that they could get rid of him maybe at the trade deadline or at the end of the season for honestly a first round pick.
Oh yeah, John Collins is definitely worth a first at this point.
Yeah, and some good assets to go along. Maybe a starter and a couple of bench pieces. just to surround Trae Young and Rondo. Honestly, maybe throw Trae Young at the 2 and put Rondo at the 1 starting.
Yeah. I mean,
they could do a lot of things. I think they just need to come into their own at this point.
Yeah, I think John Collins and Capella can coexist though. Like, I think Collins at like the stretch 4, like that might not be the worst move in the world. His 3-point percentage is very high. Like, man shoots, I'm pretty sure like 38-39% from 3.
Right.
And so it's like when you got the 3 ball like that and you're a big man, like you're a key asset to most NBA teams these days, just because of the way the schemes are run. Teams be running 5 outs and 4 outs and all that, or like the 4-1, like 4 high 1 pot picker. But he's basically setting a pick, so it's basically a 5 out. And it's just, if you have that guy that can set the screen and run to the rim and pop to the 3-point line, that's more of a threat to me than Capella, who is purely a rim runner in those pick and roll situations. Obviously, defensively, he has a lot more. He's getting blocks and all that. But I think offensively, I think Collins is definitely not a better pairing with Trae Young. I think Capella and Collins are equally good of a pairing because that lob threat is real, and Trae Young has the step back threat. So if Capella crashes to the rim hard, Trae Young also can just step back behind the line and just pull up. He doesn't necessarily have to hit the popper. But Clint Capella definitely gives them that defensive presence inside that John Collins cannot. And I think if they were to ship one, it would probably have to be Collins, just for the fact that Trae Young rather is a -1 defense just at all times. You're never going to make that man a good defender. And so you got to put as many defensive pieces around him as you can that can also contribute offensively. And since Collins can't really, well, he's decent at defense, but since he's not like a defensive stalwart, like I'm under the basket, you're not dunking. It's not a threat, exactly. So that would be the one to go if one has to go. But I don't think a trade is necessarily what they need right now, because they have a lot of young guys, and when you start trading away assets and like acquiring picks, it makes sense if you're a team trying to contend, but for a team that's really rebuilding right now, it doesn't make too much sense for them to try and like trade for too many like veterans, because you're putting big contracts on your roster and you're setting back the rebuild more, and you're giving Trae Young like worse, quote unquote worse future teammates. And when I say future teammates, I mean draft picks. And so it's like, do you really want to try and make the team as good as possible right now, or do you want to just be as good as you are right now and know it's not good enough, and then just work to keep your draft picks, draft people, and maybe develop later? And I think developing later is definitely the route for them right now. And I say they have a good 5 to 7 year window to continue developing until Trae Young is hitting that point in his career where it's like, we got to win now. So I think for the next 5 or so years, they can play it out with their roster as currently constructed and see what happens. Maybe make some moves as needed, for fits and all that. But I don't necessarily think a trade might be the answer for them. But if they did make a trade for Collins, I wouldn't be surprised. It's he is the one player that I could see going off that roster and being replaced by picks on another player, and it would be like, okay, well, we still have Danilo, so it's basically a John Collins. I stress the floor. I just can't get inside like John Collins. I can't rise like John Collins. But I mean, I'm gonna stretch the floor, and we have Clint. So Clint plus Danilo is basically one John Collins, schematically. And so, offensively, I should say. And so they wouldn't really be too hurt schematically if they lost John Collins. And the way the game is going these days, that's a hot asset. Like, if you could flip him for first-round picks, definitely do that.
I like it. So where can you see Charlotte, or who can you see Charlotte targeting for trade deadline, if you think they should target anyone?
I think on the trade deadline, Charlotte is going to need basically someone to not replace Gordon Hayward, because Gordon Hayward's unreplaceable. He's good. But I think they should definitely look for somebody to be like a de facto Gordon Hayward if Gordon Hayward were to suffer some unknown injury. You know what I mean? Gordon Hayward is made of glass at this point. We figured that.
Absolutely. And
so you need somebody that can go in and act like they're Gordon Hayward, do their best Gordon Hayward impression for, a limited stretch of time. It doesn't have to be for the whole season, but just, I think they need a good bench guy that is a shooting guard or a small forward. Just so that in the off chance that Gordon Hayward gets injured, they'll have a guy that they can, turn to. Now, the other thing I would say is they need a center, but I don't know if they're really going to, throw away the 2 big men they have right now for 1 big man.
It depends who for me.
That's what I'm saying. It depends who, because like Gordon's available, Turner's available, and like Drummond's available. And last I heard, like the Hornets were looking for a big man. Oh, Boogie's available too now. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so, but Boogie's a free agent. So they can sign Boogie. They don't have to trade for him.
I think they should. That should be a. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. They were going to trade for a big man. Like I was hearing a lot about them trading for a big man and getting a big man, and like they might need a new big man. But it's like, if there's a big man available on the market, we should just pay him. So I think that like big man trade might be dead in the water in the sense that they might just be putting all their eggs in the Boogie basket.
Right. Because
I mean, Boogie is. What are you gonna say?
I now, as far as like, you know, Boogie, I mean, his stock has kind of went down, so he might not ask for as much money. But being the fact that they paid Gordon Hayward on a max contract and Terry Rozier as well, it'll be hard. It'll be hard to get somebody like Andre Drummond or a Miles Turner, or, you know, just add for contract reasons. You know that they've already put all, like you said, they put all the eggs in one basket for Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier, and honestly Devontae Graham as well. So you got to think about his payday. So I definitely think they just got to play it. They got to play it smart. It's a lot of.
I was hearing Terry in some trade rumors the other day, but I don't know if they'll actually move him since it is close to the deadline. But that would be a big contract to move, and they would probably have to give up a lot to get him. Or, well, when I say give up a lot, I mean they would have to ask for a lot from the other team. Like, I don't know if a team would be willing to give all that's necessary to get Terry Rozier's contract on their books. Because, you know, it is a big contract, and so they're going to ask for a lot for him. And he is a very, like, key player for them. It's not like it would be trading your third guy off the bench. Like, that's one of our starters. I'm going to need at least a first and some players. So, it's like, you know, I don't know if Terry's going to be moving. I think the Hornets are in a weird position, though, where they're, like, at the end of the, what is the word I'm looking for? They're at the end of the, they're at the outside looking in, but they're not quite. Mm-hmm. They're at the edge of the bubble. They're number 8. They're tied for 8th. And so they're technically like 9th, I guess, because it's like 8, but.
Yeah, it's like half a game, bro.
Exactly, yeah. And so they are in a buyer's position, but they are also in a seller's position. Mm-hmm. And it's a weird dichotomy because I don't know if they're going to actually buy and try and bolster their roster to make a playoff run, or if they're going to sell and try and get rid of players to, you know, then like shorten their roster, but then just try and play out the season and set themselves up for future success. Mm-hmm. And it really feels like it remains to be seen what's actually going to happen. But I think the closer we get to the trade deadline, it'll start to become apparent as to what their plans for their season is. Do they think they have a chance to make the playoffs, or do they think they're just rebuilding and are just going to sell and then, you know, try and go into next year with a lot of draft stock?
I like it.
What do you think about their chances?
I think if they played the season out, maybe make a key signing in free agency if they decide not to trade anyone away. If they get a good pickup in free agency, I definitely think they should just ride the season out and see where they can go. And, you know, I think within the next couple of years, I think they could be a top 5 team if LaMelo Ball and if Gordon Hayward was able to stay healthy.
Wait, top 5 in the East, top 5 in the NBA?
East.
Okay. I was like, I had to throw that one out because I was like, wait, that top 5 team, I can't just let that one go. Like, I gotta know, like.
That'd be hard. They have to be balling for that to happen.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
But they have guys like LaMelo Ball and Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier, Miles Bridges, you know, who's kind of growing up in a sense. Devontae Graham, who's easily a bucket and get you 20, 25 a night if he's consistent. I just definitely think those guys, they're all young. The oldest is Gordon Hayward, who's 30.
I was going to say, Gordon Hayward, 20. Oh, my. It's the best 20-year-old I've ever seen. Like,
facts. been in the league too long to be
Yeah, facts. I was like, this man been on the Jazz, he's been on the Celtics, been on the Hornets, he's only 20. Like, call the commissioner.
Right, amazing. All-star teams and all.
Yeah, facts.
So, I just definitely think within the next year or two, they continue to stay consistent, and Michael Jordan actually picked correctly. I mean, I know there's not a way. I know you can't necessarily quote unquote pick correctly, but yes, you can. Like,
yes, you can.
It is possible. It is possible. So, I just think if he makes some good sound picks, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, I think they will too.
I think they'll be fine.
I think the Hornets will be one of those like middle of the pack teams that never really gets over the hump. And when I say over the hump, I mean wins the championship. But like the hump is very high. I think they'll definitely get in the playoffs. We won't see them just, like makes it was like the Wizards before Wall got injured. Like they were that consistent 5 through 8 seed that would make the playoffs, but would never really be expected to do much in playoffs. But they would always consistently be in there, and they were always consistently good and a challenge in the regular season. It's just they weren't like superb. And I think that's where the Hornets are going to be in the next like 2-3 years. Just because LaMelo looks like he's developing rapidly. They got Hayward, they got Rozier, they got Devontae Graham. Like they have a good foundation, and it's just a matter of the players playing up to their skill level, and then we'll see where their ceiling is. But I don't think their ceiling is like championship. I think their ceiling right now is probably like second round of the playoffs, and then like the conference finals would be like a dream scenario.
Right.
And so,
absolutely.
I think that's how it'll go for the Hornets, but I don't think that's a bad outlook given that they haven't made the playoffs in years. So
not at all.
It's
won a series in a long time.
Exactly, yeah. So they're turning a corner. You don't get to the top of the mountain in 2 seconds. Just like Rome was not built in a day. So they'll get there eventually. I don't know if they'll ever get to the finals, but they'll get to the playoffs. They'll get what they're trying to get.
Stretch.
But yeah, the finals is definitely a stretch. Unless they get some generational talent, like somehow they win the draft lottery and get Cade Cunningham or something, like I'm not seeing it. But if they get Cade Cunningham, that wouldn't even make sense because that'll be another point guard. So
that's they've always been packed with guards for no reason.
And then their bigs are sorry. Like we had Marvin Williams for like 8 years. Like why? Why were you the starting forward? Like I don't understand. Right. What do you do here exactly? And so it's just. I think the Hornets have been plagued by poor drafting and poor management, but they do have a roster that plays hard, and they do have a good coach. So I think they're set up to be successful in the future, even though in the past they have fallen short.
I agree.
And with the NBA discussion now concluded, we'll go back to college and talk about what we really want to talk about, the ACC tournament that is rapidly approaching, and who we think is going to win, be in the finals, make it far, and who's going to lose in the first round. No, we're not going to do all that. But we're just going to say who we think is going to be the championship. And so, for this segment, I'm going to let James go first. James, who do you think is going to be the ACC championship?
In the ACC championship, I can definitely see maybe see Virginia and Florida State. Florida State's got some shooters. Honestly, they can barely miss. So, it'll be hard for somebody to beat them. This season, they're 11-1 at home, so so it's just that's tough to beat. You know what I'm saying? That's tough to beat. So I can see those two.
You said Florida State and Virginia. I can see it too. I like Virginia, but I'm not as sold on Florida State. I don't think Florida State is bad. I just think that Virginia is like the harder team to beat. And therefore, they're not going to be the team that teams are like, all right, let's beat them. They're the weak link. We can make it to the ACC champion. It's going to be Florida State. And so, Florida State, they don't have many weaknesses. Virginia doesn't either. But Virginia's offense is just, like, clicking. Like, it doesn't look, like, it just, they. And so, when you're scoring at such, like, a rate and you're holding your opponents down, it kind of lends itself to being, more successful in the playoffs because you play that championship caliber of defense. Like, Virginia only gives up 60 points a game, which even for college, that's low.
Right.
Florida State is giving 70. And so Florida State scores more, but Florida State also has worse defense inherently. Right. And it's just in playoff scenarios and postseason scenarios, I've seen it too many times. I've heard the announcer say it a million times. Defense wins championships. And I can't go against that for the sake of the championship matchup. But I think the ACC championship is going to be Florida State and Virginia. Those are the two best teams, and I see no reason for them to lose. The only team I could see being a spoiler, quote unquote spoiler, is either Duke or maybe Virginia Tech if they get hot. Carolina, possibly a strong third because they are playing well at the right time, and that's always, a good thing to do going into tournament time when you're clicking and not, regressing. Some teams go into the tournament regressing and they, bounce back, but Carolina won't have to do that. They just play how you've been playing, and you're just, keep it going. And I think they can make some noise just because of they have a synergistic roster that is all the players playing together is what makes them good. You can't just isolate on one guy and be like, we shut him down, we win. Virginia, you shut down Hauser, you're probably going to win. Duke, you shut down Hurt, you're probably going to win. And so it's just they don't have that weakness, but Florida State doesn't have that weakness. So it's and they're much better than Carolina. But I think of those 5 teams I mentioned, Florida State, Virginia are going to be in the final. Tech, Carolina, and Duke have the next best chance, in my opinion.
I like that.
And that's all I have to say about the ACC tournament, because it hasn't happened yet. And I don't want to make too many predictions and sound like an idiot when all of them are wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yup.
Can't argue with that.